Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Wednesday, January 17th, 2024. This is live stream number 1008. If you're not overly familiar with this show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And I'll usually share some random musings about the hobby as well. So, welcome aboard. Should mention, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com, of which I, once again, happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief, where you're going to find a lot more tabletop gaming news, reviews, comic book stuff, all different things you are not going to find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, because this is a live stream, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you are a subscriber to the channel and you have been for at least 48 hours, you can take part in chat. So if you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. And I got to point out, my shoulder is absolutely killing me at the moment. Oh, gosh. And no, I did not take a Tylenol with codeine before I started doing the show tonight. So I am just grinning and bearing it. Ugh. Anyway, let's see who we got in chat, because it looks like we got a rockin' and rollin' chat already. So we've got Gruesome Gaming Group, Kathy Evans, Bob the Goodman. I believe this is the first time for Bob visiting with us live here in chat. Typical DM, Testy Trekkie, Matthew Blackwell, our pal Kevin R. Smith, Tesco Love, I believe might be another first-time visitor, Zorak Zoran 1, and W Forge are all in chat. Oh, and there's Wild Hunter. So we've got chat off and running tonight. Good to see you all. Let's dive on into the news, because there is a new dino-centric board game which is arriving from Absurdist Productions. Here's what I know about PaleoVet. We've brought dinosaurs back to life, but who will care for these magnificent and dangerous beasts? You are paleo-veterinarians competing to save as many dinos as possible from modern illnesses and injuries. Roll dice, upgrade your hospital, and compete with fellow paleo-veterinarians to treat injured and sick dinosaurs. As long as the dinosaurs don't wake up during treatment, nothing can go wrong. In PaleoVet, players take turns drafting dinosaur cards from a central river, rolling dice and spending dice icons for various effects, most notably curing sick and injured dinosaurs. Each dinosaur card lists which icons are needed to cure it and affect victory points, its genetic order, and diet. Dinosaur effects can occur when a dinosaur appears in the center of the table, when it is added to your hospital, or while it remains in your hospital. These effects can change gameplay in a variety of ways. The first dinosaur park in the world ended in tragedy, but the dinosaurs still roam that abandoned island. Now considered an international treasure, this lost world faces an unanticipated threat: modern microbes. It is up to the brave paleo veterinarians to venture onto the island to study and care for these dangerous creatures. Expeditions to the island are expensive, so only the most prolific paleo veterinarian can be named the top paleo vet. Paleo vet is for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, plays in around 30 to 60 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $44.99 when it arrives on February 7th. Gotta say, this looks pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. If you're a dinosaur fan, you might want to take a peek at this. So we've got plenty more folks hanging out in chat. Jose Fernandez has arrived, flaming here on one of our chat moderators. From across the pond is with us, as is Kevin King, Daryl Errett, Sarah D., yet another chat moderator. And I think I have said hello to everyone. So, W. Forge says this is probably safer than being a paleo dentist. So basically, Kevin R. Smith says, an offshoot of Jurassic Park that couldn't get the license. I don't know. There's a lot of dinosaur games where it's, a dinosaur park that has nothing to do with Jurassic Park, effectively because they don't get free. But yes, this ended in disaster, huh? Reminds me of something. What could it be? Also arriving in February is a game of marriage, money, and murder. I'm talking about Deadly Dowagers from Sparkworks and Tabletop Tycoon. Here's what I know. Deadly Dowagers is a strategic card drafting game filled with marriage, money, and murder. You start as a middle-class Victorian woman who would simply kill to be a duchess. However, the other ladies in town have their eyes set on the new duke as well. With a small dowry and a plot of land, you must marry, grow your estate, survive the untimely death/deaths of your unfortunate husband/husbands, and remarry into higher social status to attract the duke's attention before another player accepts the duke's proposal. Each round, draft cards to grow your wealth, creatively put an end to your lover's life, and remarry your way up the social ladder. Be warned, as you maneuver your way up the social ladder, rumors will start to spread and your infamy will grow. The game ends when one player has no current husband, no more than 9 infamy, spends 120 crowns, and plays a remarry card to marry the duke. Then that player will win. Deadly Dowagers is for 2 to 6 players, ages 14 and up, plays in around 30 to 90 minutes, and it will carry an MSRP of $35 when it lands in stores next month. Interesting premise here. Fleming Aaron says, not a game where it's safe to be a guy. No, not at all. And the reality is, there are a lot of women throughout history who did this. Okay, maybe I should say a lot, but there have been some. There have been some really twisted serial killers who were women as well. I listened to an audiobook. I want to say it's based on a podcast, although I had never listened to the podcast, but the audiobook was really good, and it was called Lady Killers. And it was about women who were killers. So this could be kind of cool. I like the art style as well. And I like the premise. I think it's intriguing. So let's talk about some role-playing game news, because currently up for crowdfunding for Appendix N Entertainment is the Shadow Dark edition of their Creature Companion. And I've got the scoop. Welcome to Creature Companion Shadow Dark Edition. In the spring of 2022, Appendix N Entertainment launched an ambitious project for Old School Essentials. That project was the first iteration of Creature Companion. The work celebrated the artwork of Evelyn Moreau and was the first book published by Appendix N Entertainment to feature art by only one artist. Now they aim to bring a copy of this work to the excellent tabletop role-playing game, Shadow Dark, which I recently reviewed. Whatever is Creature Companion? Creature Companion is a bestiary featuring 46 unique creatures, which include both lore and stat blocks, each based upon a work of art by Evelyn Moreau. Due to stretch goals in the original Kickstarter, this was over double the amount of creatures that were originally planned. The Old School Essentials edition of the book also received an appendix of deities, creatures which served each, and spells bestowed upon the clerics of these beings, also all based upon Evelyn's artwork. They now aim to separate these books, and they'll make that book of deities available for Shadow Dark at a discount to backers as part of the stretch goals of this project. Now, the Kickstarter project for the Creature Companion Shadow Dark Edition is now fully funded. And you can reserve a copy of the physical book, which I believe is going to be a soft cover. I don't think it's like zine size. I don't think it's saddle stitched, because it just doesn't appear, like the layout doesn't appear that it would be a zine, but I don't know. But you can get the physical book and PDF for a $25 pledge. So I'm assuming it's going to be soft cover, or you can get just the PDF for a $12 pledge through February 1st. And the estimated delivery for both the physical book and PDF happens to be this July. Interesting. Very interesting. Good to see lots of stuff coming out for Shadow Dark. Shadow Dark's the new hotness. Back in the day, it was Mirkberg. Now it's Shadow Dark. Everybody's jumping on that third-party license. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Unfortunately, there is no video for this Kickstarter. So, unfortunately, I cannot share one with you because it does not exist. Speaking of videos, though, we will get right back to the tabletop gaming news. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
Want a cup of Wilkins coffee?
What'll Mr. Wilkins do if I don't?
Oh, he'll probably put his foot down.
We love them hot, hot shots, those brand new hot shots. It's a firecracker treat that's fun to eat. You'll get a bang and a hot shot. They've got a lot of hot, pow, for just a nickel. Look at all you've got. It's a firecracker treat that's fun to eat. You'll get a bang and a hot shot.
They're new, hot red hot shots. Good and hot tongue-teasing candy that's sure to give your taste a bang.
It's a firecracker treat that's fun to eat.
Just pull the fuse, pop them in your mouth, and take off for fun. What candy?
We love them hot, hot shots. To be shot hot shots. It's a firecracker treat that's fun to eat. Pow, 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 pow.
I have absolutely no idea what that Hot Shots candy would be. I'm guessing a hot cinnamon jawbreaker? I don't know. I do not know. It is a candy that I am completely unfamiliar with. Now, I do know like the cinnamon candy that I think it's a Ferrera candy. But I forget, it's hot something, but it's not Hot Shots, I don't think. Flaming Heron says, it's a firecracker, Jeff. Yep, light the firecracker, put it in your mouth, and it's an explosion of flavor, which is all the blood and broken teeth, things like that, when that M80 goes off. Kevin King says, welcome to the 60s. Yeah, that Dr. Pepper ad really did strike me as being early 70s, 71, 72. That Hot Shots candy's got to be probably 65, 66 at the latest, because of course it's got that Beatles look to it. Typical DM says, and here I was thinking Hot Shot was refrigerant. W4 asked if anyone thinks that there are too many iterations based on the OSR. We can talk a little bit about that after the news. If you would like, we can kind of delve into that a little bit. So let's get back to the news, because there's another crowdfunding project I'd like you to take note of, because it is the second edition of the Magical Land of Yeld role-playing game from the same folks who are behind the Modest Medusa webcomic. And here's the latest. Welcome to Yeld. If this is your first time visiting the Magical Land, you're about to discover a hidden world full of adventures and danger. If you've discovered Yeld before, get ready to continue your adventures with a brand new book full of exciting new options and improvements. The Magical Land of Yeld, 2nd edition, is an all-ages tabletop role-playing game with a focus on teamwork, exploration, and shared storytelling. This new edition refines and polishes the easy-to-learn Yeld rule set and offers new jobs, new art and lore, new monsters, and plenty of quality-of-life improvements. It is also completely backwards compatible with the previously published expansions. So there's no need to rebuy any of those job guides you may have already picked up, because they appreciate your investment and they assure you that you'll be able to continue to use your collection of Yeld expansions with this new edition. So this does have a short Kickstarter video. It's around 2 minutes long. So let's give it a look.
Hey everyone! Gather your best friends, your dog, and all of your courage. It's time to go to Yeld. The Magical Land of Yeld 2nd Edition is an all-ages tabletop role-playing game full of fun and adventure. Play as children from our world who discover a secret door to a magical land. Explore the Kingdom of Yeld and become heroes, choosing heroic jobs like Witch, Shepherd, and Oathbreaker. But be careful, the door home will close, trapping you in Yeld. To unlock the door, you'll need to face the 7 legendary hunters of Yeld and collect their magical keys. Make sure you hurry. If you can't escape Yeld before you turn 13, you'll become a monster and be trapped in the magical land forever. Create child characters called friends and set out on a quest to save the kingdom and find your way home with gameplay focused on tactical combat, exploration and travel, teamwork, and shared storytelling. The Magical Land of Yeld 2nd Edition is a complete original RPG system that polishes Yeld's easy-to-learn rules. It's fully compatible with all our current expansions, while offering exciting new options, quality of life improvements, and a whole bunch of new lore and art about the mysterious land of Yeld and the mermaids, fairies, vampires, and other creatures that call Yeld home. Get ready to join us in Yeld. The Magical Land of Yeld 2nd Edition ships summer of 2024.
The Kickstarter for the Magical Land of Yeld 2nd Edition just launched and is already on the cusp of funding. In fact, as of right now, it may have funded. You can reserve a copy of the 350-plus page hardcover with PDF for a $60 pledge, or grab just the PDF, which for some strange reason, it's indicated it's going to clock in at about 330 pages. So there's going to be 20 pages more in the hardcover as opposed to just the PDF. Don't know what's going on there, but you can get that PDF for a $15 pledge through February 11th. Now, the expected delivery for the digital products is this April, and the physical book is slated to arrive in August. So if you are a follower of the Gaming Gang for quite some time, you already know I reviewed the 1st edition of the Magical Land of Yeld, and it is excellent. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It is really good. If you happen to be a fan of the Modest Medusa webcomic and you are into role-playing games, then this is absolutely a must-have. Although you really don't need any knowledge whatsoever of Modest Medusa in order to enjoy this. But this is really an excellently presented role-playing game. It is very easy to wrap your head around. And this is what I like most about it, is that it is a family-friendly role-playing game, but it never insults anyone's intelligence. It never speaks down to you. So, you know how you run into some, on occasion, family-focused role-playing games, and you're reading it, it's sort of like, so you do realize that I'm not the child. I'm the adult who's going to be reading this, or, running this game. That is not the case with the Magical Land of Yeld. And the folks over at yeldstuff.com, I believe the company is Ashtari Games, but the reason I didn't really mention that is because there isn't any mention of Ashtari Games for this Kickstarter, so I don't know if that's still their company or what. But I can tell you this is really good. And W Forge is stealing some of my thunder. If you want to check out the Magical Land of Yeld, you can go to DriveThruRPG, get the PDF. It is pay what you want. The recommended price is $1, but as I point out all the time, pay what you want, you can pay nothing. And the creators are fine with that. That's why it's a pay what you want. So if you'd like, you can get the 1st edition core rulebook absolutely free. Check it out. See if it kind of gets your juices flowing. And if so, by all means, back this new Kickstarter. So as Flaming Heron points out, if this is anything like the first edition, this is an instant back. And I'm with you on that. I am right with you. And there are a lot of expansions for it. I know there was a starter set because I shared coverage of the starter set. I shared a video of it. I'm trying to remember if I reviewed it or not. I think I did. I'm pretty sure I did review it. The starter set, obviously, I did review the first edition core book. But this is not some game where it's like, oh, here's the core book and you'll never hear from us ever again. No, they are really committed to this role-playing game, and I like it. And it's inviting to everyone. Gotta say that too. All righty. Travis Williams is with us in chat. Daryl says, Oathbreaker as a job? Sounds like a politician. That was a good one. Russell Higgins is also hanging with the gang. Flaming Heron says that this new edition has a lot of expansions planned as well. If I remember correctly, when I was taking a peek, there were quite a few stretch goals for this. In fact, there were a lot of stretch goals for the creature companion for Shadow Dark as well. So really wanted to share this. This is something that I can wholeheartedly recommend you at least check out and give serious consideration to backing the Kickstarter. All right, my final news piece. There is a new source book for the Exalted role-playing game, which has arrived in PDF from Onyx Path Publishing. And here's what I know about Across the Eight Directions. From frozen northern tundra to vast southern deserts, from dense eastern forests to the west's endless waters, creation shelters a myriad of cultures and civilizations. Night horrors stalk the farmlands outside Whitewall, while residents and refugees within struggle with overpopulation and hunger. In the rebel satrapy of Frey, Dragon Lord Hanto Galena has named herself Empress and laid claim to the Scarlet Throne. Intelligent wolves rule in Wolf's Paw, adopting human finery and demanding loyalty from human servants. By the Dreaming Sea, Zakul relics play their soul game, competing to seize opponents' bodies. Varangian astrologers study citizens' horoscopes, setting social status from the moment of birth. Alien structures loom over Decanthus, a southwestern city recently returned from hell. Smiths in the Empire of Mikilo produce fantastic works, their craft handed down from the forge goddess Nungala. An ominous heart beats beneath these silver-swept plains, drawing the plains clans into the entity's inhuman nightmares. Across the Eight Directions provides details about locations throughout creation, including their history, culture, government structure, religious practices, and more. It introduces new settings and expands upon familiar locales. It also discusses prominent figures active in each location and presents information on local neighborhoods such as allies, rival cities, or wilderness areas with intriguing mysteries for explorers to encounter. The 322-page PDF of Exalted Across the Eight Directions is available now over at Drive-Thru RPG for $29.99. W. Forge says, nice to see Exalted still getting some love. Yes, this is for the third edition of Exalted, and there have been some releases as of late for the third edition. Seems like there's a release for it about every 3 months or so. So yes, it is something that Onyx Path Publishing is supporting. Nero's Fiddle is hanging with us tonight. So they had no idea Exalted was still in print. It actually got a new edition about a year ago, thereabouts. Of course, sometimes, I've been doing this for so long. Sometimes it feels like something was a year or two ago, and it's like, oh, 5 years, huh? All right. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Do not forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, Drive-Thru RPG or Dungeon Masters Guild, Storyteller's Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, then by all means, stop by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. And I have to point out, Agile Monk recently stopped by paypal.me/thegaminggang and made a not small donation. So thank you to all of you out there who utilize the banner ads and or visit paypal.me/thegaminggang. Much appreciated. Okay, so W4 says, I get confused about which old White Wolf games are owned by which new publisher. Tessie Trekkie says, Exalted got its last edition just before they got married. That's 10 years ago. Really? 3rd edition Exalted? I don't know. Maybe they had a new print run or something. I have no idea. So the question was posed, do we have too many iterations of games that build upon the OSR? So let's take a moment here and we will discuss this. But before we do, I do want to mention, boy, I've been getting a lot of feedback on my announcement yesterday that I was not going to provide any coverage for Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons anymore. And thank you for all your support out there. Some people are like, oh, that's really brave of you. There's no bravery involved in it. It's just saying, hey, you know what? I'm not going to put up with your nonsense. That's it. That's all it is. So anyway, I had to laugh because I'm getting all these zeets, and I've gotten a few emails from people, and they're like, oh, you should check out Cubicle 7 Entertainment. You know, Free League Publishing's got a lot of good stuff. And it's sort of like, could you folks maybe take a peek at the Gaming Gang first before you start telling me what I should be looking into? Oh man, you know what? You should go review Shadow Dark. Somebody did recommend Shadow Dark, and I thought, oh my God, I just shared that review this weekend. So like, I mean, I appreciate it, I really do, but on the other hand, I kind of think to myself, you know, if I encountered something like that, I wouldn't be sitting there like, oh, hey, do this without ever looking to see who this person was. Flaming Red says, you should check out Chaosium. They do good RPGs. I know. So yes, I did get a zeet saying Chaosium, Cubicle 7, Free League Publishing, and Arc Dream. And it's like, I cover all 4 of those. Tesco Love says, have you heard of Call of Cthulhu? As I mentioned last night, I did get a zeet saying, oh, you should check out Call of Cthulhu. My response was, I've been answering the Call of Cthulhu for over 40 years. So, Kevin R. Smith says, take it as a compliment. Apparently, you look like a 20-something who has only played 5e. Huh? What? All right, so let's talk a little bit about the OSR. So the first thing we need to do is define it, because nobody can, right? I shared a video. What is the OSR, and is it filled with right-wing extremists, which actually still gets about like 50 to 100 views a day? Wild Hunter says, have you tried TSR? Tactical Studies Research? I heard they're pretty good. I heard they got this new game coming out. It's what they call, well, actually, it wasn't called a role-playing game because TSR didn't coin that term. Rick Loomis over at Flying Buffalo did. Yeah, they got this new Dragons and Dungeons or something game coming out. Pretty interesting. Anyway, so the way I define the old school Renaissance, in fact, people can't even agree on what the R is. It could be old school revival. I always say Renaissance. To me, they are role-playing games that build upon the key concepts of original Dungeons and Dragons, and or advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I think that is what a lot of grognards kind of use to define OSR. But I also believe that games that are kind of adjacent to it, maybe they're not just retro clones of basic expert D&D, but still looking at trying to utilize some of those mechanics, but still provide you with that old school vibe of role-playing game where it's not the characters. The characters don't make the game. The adventures make the game. Huge difference. And I think, in my opinion, that is one of the key things that separates old school from modern role-playing games. Because old school only takes you a few minutes normally to roll up a character and get into the game. Modern, it could take your first session to roll up characters. And it's, that's fine. I don't have any issues with that. But the thing is, with modern role-playing games, there is more focus on the characters, and the characters are the important part, not necessarily the adventure. And in my opinion, I happen to like the old school method more than the modern method, because I think it's the adventures and how your players react to various different things during an adventure that make for memorable experiences. Plus, at least in my experience, I find that you tend to get more investment in the adventure with an old school approach as opposed to modern, because the players are far more focused on their characters and their character backstory, and how is their character's backstory going to fit into this adventure, and the game master has to do all this juggling. So that's kind of how I look at it as far as the OSR. And like I said, everybody's got a different definition. So some people out there, it's not OSR if it's not built upon mechanics from TSR era D&D. And they'll even tell you second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is not OSR. I have a far broader definition of the old school Renaissance than that. W. Forge says, old school essentials, the Black Hack. Black Hack's not OSR. Castles and Crusades, Dungeon Crawl Classics. A lot of people are going to argue Dungeon Crawl Classics is also not OSR. Cairn, another one that people say is not OSR, and the White Box, just to name a few of the OSR games out there. You're barely scratching the surface, my friend. We got way more. Labyrinth Lord, Swords and Wizardry, Axe is considered old school by many, many people. In fact, I believe its designer also believes that it is OSR. Hyperborea. Those are just like right off the top of our heads, right? I mean, there's loads and loads out there. Travis Williams asks, would RuneQuest be OSR? No, it would not. It is classic. It is a classic role-playing game. That is for certain. And they said they believe the first edition was around the first edition of D&D. Kevin will probably be able to tell us this because he's kind of our tabletop role-playing game historian. I want to say RuneQuest came out in 78 from the Chaosium, was the name of the company back then. But I would not consider it OSR because it is quite different than Dungeons and Dragons because you've got the introduction of the percentile-based skill systems. Combat is different. You don't have armor classes. You also have armor locations. So you have damage locations. And I remember I had to laugh because each location has so many hit points. And if you total up those hit points, they actually are more than the total hit points of the character. And I knew that it used to throw people off, but it was sort of like, no, that's just how many hit points that location can take before it's like amputated or just crushed and made useless. Kevin R. Smith says, it came out a few years after D&D. They would classify RuneQuest clones as OSR, but some people limit the term to stuff based on old D&D editions. Yeah, like I said, nobody can agree on what the OSR is. Anthony Good is with us. Welcome aboard. And question popped up, when did the OSR kind of take off? Kevin once again points out, early to mid 2000s. Yeah, I think that's about right. There you go, Osric. There's another OSR game. If you want a retro clone of first edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Myself personally, I consider Basic Fantasy to be OSR. I know a lot of people wouldn't. I do. Wild Hunter, Tunnels and Trolls. Yeah, I would think, yeah, even though Tunnels and Trolls, if you are not familiar with Tunnels and Trolls, and I'll be the first to admit, I only read through the core book to do a review. I found it really fascinating, very interesting, very modern in its approach as well. Pretty unique as far as its combat system because all of the players together are kind of combining dice rolls in that. Like I said, very, very interesting. Kind of up in the air now. I know it's with another publisher now. It's no longer, or was it, trying to remember if Flying Buffalo was purchased or if it's with another publisher now. But supposedly we're going to start seeing more for Tunnels and Trolls. Russell Higgins says they find Tunnels and Trolls 2 rules light. Interesting. Wild Hunter, yes, there you go. Chivalry and Sorcery, yes, that is OSR. Bunnies and Burrows. I haven't seen that in a billion years. Bushido. Bushido was an excellent system. Actually, a really good system. And FSU used to come out with some pretty cool role-playing games. Their artwork wasn't too hot. They didn't have a lot of distribution, I guess I would say, but Bushido is very, very good. That is a classic. In my opinion, if you were looking to run a Japanese themed fantasy game, Bushido would be something I would really point you towards, as opposed to, say, Legend of the Five Rings. And I like Legend of the Five Rings. At least I did when it was with AEG. I haven't seen anything from Fantasy Flight Games as far as their releases, although I heard they didn't change much, that it is pretty much the same game as it was before. So Kevin R. Smith says, OSR started to ramp up around 4E D&D, the edition virtually everyone hated, though there's some revisionist love of it now. Lord Cost 2000 is also hanging with us. W. Forge says, Tunnels and Trolls was made to be more accessible to players by only using six-sided dice. That's one of the reasons why it is very, very popular in Japan. Tunnels and Trolls has a huge Japanese fan base because they couldn't get polyhedral dice. Daryl says they've been out of gaming since 1992. Never heard of OSR until about a year ago. What do you call non-OSR modern games like 5e, which they have never and will never play? Modern? There really isn't any sort of term for them, just like we have new SR. So new SR would be Shadow Dark. A lot of people feel Cairn and the Black Hack, Troika, Beyond the Wall, thinking of some of this stuff, Into the Odd as new SR. So what new SR tends to be is role-playing games that embrace the old school vibe. And we can talk about the old school vibe in just a moment. But they don't utilize those same busted mechanics as a lot of people claim from like original Dungeons and Dragons, Basic Expert, or Advanced D&D. So they kind of play around with that. So new SR games won't have the suite of 6 attributes with a range of 3 to 18. You might have 3 attributes. You might have 4 attributes. You may not have the 3 to 18 range. They tend to have more streamlined mechanics. So one aspect of the original Dungeons and Dragons games is that they don't have like an underlying mechanic that ties everything together. So as an example, RuneQuest, Call of Cthulhu, basic role-playing, the underlying mechanic are the percentile dice. You're rolling low on percentile dice to succeed. That's, in essence, the core mechanic of the game. You need to pass a sanity test. Okay, rolling those percentile dice, looking to roll under my sanity score or equal to or below. I'm trying to drive this car. All right, so I've got to roll my drive auto. And of course, we're talking about like racing down the street, weaving through traffic, not just I start the car and back out of the garage. All right, roll, drive auto. Where's my reverse automobile skill? So, like, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons doesn't have that. Yes, you got the D20, but then you've got stuff where you've got, the thief and the various different thief skills, and you're rolling percentile dice, or you're rolling a D6, And it's like, oh, a 1 or 2 on a 6-sided die, or 45%. And it's like all these different kind of mechanics tied together into a game. It's very sectionalized as far as its approach. And new SR tends to look towards unifying a mechanic that kind of covers everything. And of course, that kind of comes from D20. So I'll be the first to mention that I really was not in any sort of role-playing games outside of Call of Cthulhu during the D20 boon and bane days. So I gotta be honest, I don't know what the huge deal was about why there's so much hatred for D20 outside of the fact that there was just a lot of shit that was published. Is that what it is? Is that where the hatred of D20 comes? That it was just a glut of trash that was on the market? I don't know. I honestly have no clue. So, I mean, because let's be honest, there's a lot of trash third-party shit out there too. So, a Traveler, there we go. Traveler, see, and the funny thing is, Traveler's really not OSR, but Traveler is classic. It is a very classic role-playing game, and I talk about it all the time. I really like Mongoose's second edition Traveler that they've got. I think it's a very good steward of the original Traveler. And yes, I do know that Mark Miller, the designer of Traveler, has his own Traveler, and Mongoose's Traveler is better than his Traveler 5, I think it is. I got a chance to take a peek at the PDF of Traveler 5. I think it was 5. I think that's what they were calling it a few years ago. And I just was left scratching my head. I gave up on it. I gave up on it after about 100 pages because it seemed to me more like a toolbox than anything else, and not in a good way. Like Stars Without Number or Worlds Without Number, Cities Without Number. All those games are toolboxes as well as game systems. That is something I really need to dig into. I should really try to see. And you know, the funny thing is, the author, gosh, now off the top of my head, I can't remember his name. Crawford. Is it Ken Crawford? Kevin Crawford. There we go. Sorry, did I just yell? Thankfully, I've got a limiter, so I didn't just blow your ears out. I don't think Kevin Crawford really cares about reviews and marketing and stuff like that. So, I mean, his Kickstarters do really well. His games are really well received. So, anyway, so let's see what else is cooking there. So, to answer the original question, do I think there are far too many OSR games out there? Yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. But it also provides people the opportunity to check things out, to find their own particular style of the old school Renaissance that they feel is the best fit for them. So myself personally, I probably would not run an original Dungeons and Dragons game or a basic expert game or advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I would probably lean more towards Advanced Fantasy Edition of Old School Essentials, which really is BX. I mean, let's be very honest. Old School Essentials does not revolutionize anything. It just cleans up the presentation of basic and expert to make it easier to digest. Now, Old School Essentials is certainly not a role-playing game that you would want to give to someone who is brand new to role-playing games, because it's just rules. It doesn't sit there and explain how to run a game or how to play a game or anything like that. Chaz Ansible is joining us. I think Chaz has hung out with us in the past. Sweet. Okay. Chat's just rocking and rolling tonight, gang. Thank you very much. I know we have some new viewers. They may not be hanging out in chat, but I think we've got some new viewers hanging out. I think we've got a couple of first timers in chat. Probably folks who've watched before, but maybe not had an opportunity to get into chat with us. So I'm very appreciative of you taking time out to join us tonight. So let's see. I remember the days when if you rolled an 18 on strength, here we go, you would then roll a percentile die to see how far your strength could go. First time I rolled up an Advanced Dungeons & Dragons character because I had never played. And my brother's friend, we were in grammar school. I think my brother was in the 8th grade. Or maybe he was even a freshman in high school. And his friend was the dungeon master, and he had me roll up a character, and I got an 18 strength and followed that up with a 97. And I was like, he was like, whoa, and I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know. Like, all right. And then it was right after that, I was in a hobby shop and I saw the D&D stuff and I picked up Steading of the Hill Giant Chief. I've told this story before, thinking, oh yeah, that's the game. Got it home, opened it up. I'm looking at it. I'm like, how do you play this? What the hell's going on? Kevin R. Smith says, Jeff, you're spot on about the D20 license. Basically, there was a lot of crap published and retailers had trouble distinguishing crap from good stuff. Well, just like back in the day when White Wolf, every time you turn around, they had new splat books coming out. It was forcing everything else off of the store shelves. Russell Higgins says, I love Traveler in all its rules versions. Some settings I am not particularly a fan of, and too deep. Space opera. Yes, Tessie Trekkie points out, yeah, it's Kevin Crawford. It just took me a minute to remember. Yeah, you got to remember, I got all these different games just jumbling around, bouncing around. Kevin R. Smith says, I like running Dark Places and Demogorgons for OSE at a convention, but it doesn't have thief skills, so everything is on a D20 or D6 for determining success. Char says, I'll guess it's Charles. I like to be really picky when it comes to OSR. Yeah, see, a lot of people are. And they really found a comfort zone with basic, expert, and so forth. A lot of people love that. The rules cyclopedia. When we wrap this up, I'm going to float something out there to you folks. Kind of curious what you think about it. Wild Hunter says OSR can be used with old TSR or dungeon magazine scenarios. Still good in the 2020s. Yeah, I got to be honest though. I never found the Adventures in Dungeon to be great. That was another situation where there was a lot of crap. Dragon Magazine, before Dungeon came around, I think was a little more solid. I liked Dragon Magazine when it wasn't necessarily a house organ for TSR. Just like, I was a big fan of Avalon Hill games. I was never a fan of the General Magazine. It was just too much of a house organ. My favorite gaming magazines were Different Worlds, which covered a good amount of Chaosium stuff. There were some good Call of Cthulhu articles in Different Worlds. Shadis, what have you. That came later. I liked that magazine quite a bit. In fact, if I remember correctly, John Zinser from AEG, which unfortunately we really don't cover anymore. John Zinser, I believe that was his magazine. Tesco Love says, this is their first time live. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. W4 says, well, the experience progression was really off kilter in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. It would take you forever to become a high-level magic user. Yup. Tesco Love says, yeah, I was one of those rubes buying all the vampire splats back in the day. I used to pick up the Vampire the Masquerade stuff. Not all of it, but a good amount of it. And I never ran it. I enjoyed reading it. I thought it was pretty interesting stuff. And it was a local company because White Wolf at that time was out of Chicago. Empire of the Petal Throne is kind of controversial these days because of things found out about the creator. Yes, Mars Barker. Yep. Yeah. Never had an opportunity to take a look at Empire of the Petal Throne. If I remember correctly, TSR sold that. I think its first big push in a publication, because I think it was self-published originally, came through TSR. So did another that Kevin's talking about. Kevin R. Smith is talking about. I have some version of Metamorphosis Alpha. Wanted to run the Starship Warden in Stars Without Number at one point. Didn't they just come out with a new edition of the Starship Warden? Goodman Games was publishing some Metamorphosis Alpha material not that long ago. I believe they are the new publishers for Metamorphosis Alpha. And I also think that they had did a print run of the original edition. I think that was it. Flaming Aaron said, unfortunately, we got Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. Yeah, I didn't care for it. I don't know what it's like with Renegade Game Studios. Not a clue. But, yeah, I didn't like the fact that, at least in the new 5th edition, when it came out, you were monstrous, no way to get around it. And I say it all the time. If I play like computer role-playing games and things like that, I never play an evil character. The once or twice I get to play a role-playing game in the past, I don't know, 30 years, I wasn't playing an evil character. Kevin R. Smith says they believe Empire of the Petal Throne was the first game TSR published after D&D. It was either that or Metamorphosis Alpha. I think it was Metamorphosis Alpha, but I could certainly be wrong. Kevin King says there was a limited run of an 800-page volume of the Starship Warden. Have not read it, but that was not from Goodman Games. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm misremembering. So what I was going to say is I have kind of kicked around maybe looking into doing a series that looks into old Dungeons and Dragons, like modules and stuff like that. And I've mentioned this before, that this was about a year and a half ago. I had kind of kicked it around. And I know people in chat are probably thinking, wait a second, Jeff, I thought you just said you're not going to cover D&D. You're done. Yes, with Wizards of the Coast and 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Yes. Stuff that was published long ago, not necessarily. But here's the thing. I would prefer to try to get the print on demand, which you can get over at either Drive-Thru RPG or Dungeon Masters Guild. But the problem is Wizards of the Coast ends up making money off of those. So I'm kind of like, But it would probably be too expensive if I went to eBay. And then eBay is just a crapshoot. There you go, Wild Hunter. I love playing space opera. I had space opera. Did I say it was FSU? I think it was FGU. Fantasy Games Unlimited. Sorry about that. I don't know why I said FSU. After Bushido, we all loved Oriental Adventures. Oh my God. Racist. One of the best things I ever heard. I think it was a comedian who said this. They were talking about Orientals, and an Asian person said, rugs are Oriental, people are Asian. I was like, that's good. That's good. But, you know, back in the day when we were, when I was a kid, that was, that was a term that people used. So they had rules for ninjas and martial arts with the TSR release. Yeah, Bushido, very cool game. Weird thing is, I had a copy of it not that long ago. I don't have it anymore. Flaming Heron says Jeff means real Dungeons and Dragons, not wizard stuff. And Darius Termina has popped on into chat. Good to see you once again. Say they have a crap ton of digital World of Darkness modules. Took me a second to translate WAD. I only came around to getting Vampire the Masquerade 5e after they watched the first season of the New York by Night live play. Oh, cool. So a good live play. Nice. Kem King says lots of channels have reviewed old modules in service of nostalgia. I'd rather see them dissected and critiqued. Well, that's what you would get. That's what you would get here. You know that. I mean, if I review it, I am going to discuss it at length. And I would probably look to talk about how you could incorporate that into like modern games like Old School Essentials or Shadow Dark or any number of, say, OSR adjacent systems. Gregory Campana is with us. Spawn of Fashion, or Fasan? I am not familiar with that. Wild Hunter says, loved Aftermath. So my Aftermath story that I can share, I bought it. I ended up getting it. Damn, my shoulder is just... Ugh, man. That's why, I don't know if you kind of noticed, if you were watching at the beginning of the show, I was sort of sitting there like, kind of like, kind of moving around. I was like, damn. So anyway, so my Aftermath story is, once again, if you happen to be someone who has followed the Gaming Gang for quite some time, and if you catch a lot of these live shows, I have shared, in fact, I think it was when I had my best friend Elliot Miller on for, what was that, episode 500? I think it was like 500 he came on. There was this like mini convention. It was like a 2-day kind of like game day that was at this community center in Oak Park, Illinois. And I forget who found out about this. I think it was my friend Scott Weigel, who was also part of the Gamers Guild. That was our high school club that I was president of. And I think it was Scott, and Scott has popped into chat from time to time. And we went to it, and it was actually really cool. It was sort of like like a community center, and they had different tables set up for different games, and there was open gaming and stuff like that. So they used to have a game club that would get together. I think it was every couple of weeks. And we actually went to this mini convention 2 or 3 times because they would do it like every 6 months. And we went, and there was this one guy who was sort of the big wig of this group. And I'll never forget, the guy's name was John. And he was probably in his late 30s. And of course, we're like 15, 16. And we go for one of the game sessions, and he's going to run Aftermath. So there were like 8 of us, and we all were rolling up Aftermath characters. And I remember I had a stop sign as a shield. It's like, yes. And I remember picking up Aftermath because I used to pick up pretty much all of the FGU stuff because I liked it. Unfortunately, the presentation from the company wasn't that great, but still. But yeah, we rolled up characters. We were going to start playing the next week, and we never played. Huh, that never happens, does it? I can't tell you how many times I have rolled up characters or I have overseen people rolling up characters for games that never got played. It's got to be about 50 at least. Wild Hunter says 1989's ElfQuest was cool. I had that. That was Chaosium. That was a little 1-inch box set. And Darius Terminus says, I swear it always throws me off hearing Illinois get mentioned because 90% of people just think Illinois is Chicago. Well, Oak Park is a suburb right next to Chicago, so I guess that would count. W4 says, I remember playing a lot of TSR games. Top Secret, yeah, we played that. Gangbusters, I owned it. I think I ran it a couple of times, but not too many times. Star Frontiers, another one I had. Gamma World, I had first edition Gamma World. And Boot Hill. I had all of those. But W4 says they never got into Gamma World or Boot Hill, though. And strangely enough, the first edition of Gamma World is not what people think of as Gamma World. It was not the weird mutated stuff, kind of crazy, kind of gonzo. That's what everybody thinks of when they think Gamma World. It was pretty straight up post-apocalyptic science fiction with some mutations and stuff like that. TSR Conan, I did not have that. If you are relatively new to following the gaming gang and stopping in and checking out these videos, I left Dungeons and Dragons right after the Fiend Folio came out. So everything that came after that, I never had, I never picked up, because by that point in time, I was entrenched in running Call of Cthulhu. All of my friends who also would run role-playing games, which I'm kind of forever game master, but some of our other friends would from time to time run stuff, not as often as I ran Call of Cthulhu, but they would run stuff from time to time. In fact, with Elliot, I used to tell Elliot that, hey man, you got to run something because I'm not running any more Call of Cthulhu because I want to play. And be like, oh, okay. So he would run like Stormbringer, which was pretty good Chaosium system there too. I got to be honest, I don't know anything about the Mongoose Stormbringer. I would assume it's probably pretty similar to the original. I remember Elliot picked up Hawkmoon too. So we were big Michael Moorcock fans. I still am. So let's see. Nobody's even talked about the Marvel role-playing game. See, now that was something I didn't have. Phase Rip. I did not have that. W. Forge says they were a Champions fan. I had the first edition of Champions. I was one of these people. I had hundreds of role-playing games. I wish I had this stuff because I guarantee it'd be worth money. I was one of these game masters who would just, anything came out, money would burn holes in my pocket. So anything that came out that kind of caught my eye and I thought, oh, that's interesting, I would pick up. I would buy it and I'd read it because I read practically constantly. If I was at home, I was usually reading. Very rarely was I sitting around just watching TV. So even when I was from about 8th grade to sophomore year, on weekends and things like that, we had an enclosed front porch. So if it was warm enough and I wasn't hanging out with friends, I was sitting there reading books, and I could crank through 3 books in a day. And I'm talking about 300-page books. Gregory asks, where to start with Michael Moorcock for the complete noob? Elric Milna Banet. See, now that's how I pronounce it. I understand it's supposed to be Melnibini is the correct pronunciation, but I've pronounced it Melnibane, and so is all of my friends for 40 plus years. So it's like, Plenty Aaron says, and where are all those games now, Jeff? A lot of them I gave away to people when I would move. So you have to remember, I went from living in Chicago, and then I moved to, see, it's going to take me a second to remember. Okay, so I went from Chicago to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I came back to Chicago. Then I went out to Arizona, to the Phoenix area. Then I came back to Chicago. Then I went out to Phoenix again, and then came back to Chicago. Now, I have to point out, I lived out in Albuquerque, New Mexico for about 3.5 years. Grand total out in Arizona, about 10. So it wasn't like I was just going back and forth every year. Then I lived in Mishawaka, Indiana for 1.5 years, and then I came back here. So now I am just outside of Chicago. Well, I shouldn't say just outside. I'm in the suburbs of Chicago. W. Forge says, Bill Willingham did some great artwork for Villains and Vigilantes. Oh, Fables. One of my all-time favorite Vertigo series. And it came back for some issues. I think it is on its next to last issue now. I think the next issue of Fables will be its final issue. So you have that to check out. Talking about authors, we were just talking about Michael Moorcock. I should mention, even though it's not game related, but there is currently a Humble Bundle going on featuring Sir Terry Pratchett's Discworld series. So if you have ever been interested in getting into that series, this is a phenomenal bundle. So off the top of my head, I think there are 42 Discworld novels. I could be wrong because, to be very honest, I've only read like the first 2. And these are ebooks. So you can get 38 or 39 of the books, and I want to say you can get books 1 through 25 or 26, and then it picks back up after it skips 1 book, and then it runs through, I think, book 40. So last 2 books and 1 book around 25 or 26 is not part of this bundle, but you can get all the rest, and the pledge, the donation you have to make is $18. Kind of cool. So if you have ever had any interest in immersing yourself into Discworld, and my best friend Elliot loves Discworld. He's read all of the books. But if you've ever had any interest, now is the time to strike, because you can get all but 3 for $18 or more. You can donate more than that, but the minimum to get all of them is $18. And I think you can jump aboard it for $1 and get like the first 3 books. And yes, I do understand. I have been told that the series really doesn't kind of get up to speed until maybe 5-6 books into the series. But still. Injurious Termina asks, why do some of my favorite streamers live so surprisingly close to me? Nice. Very cool. So anyway, like I said, I've been kind of bouncing around, maybe doing some old school modules, some adventures. I remember I even did the intro graphics for, I was going to do D&D adventures. I was going to look at advanced Dungeons and Dragons adventures. Only thing is, I got to buy them. So, just like, not covering 5e D&D anymore, or actually, Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons from Wizards of the Coast anymore, I'll be a little bummed out because, I have a nearly complete collection of 5e, which runs from over here to over here. That's what's up on this shelf. Those are all 5e books. And I am missing the Storm Giant book. For whatever reason, I never got that sent to me to review. And then I also did not have, what was it? The Mordenkainen's Guide to Monsters or something like that. The one that they ended up replacing. They recently replaced it with like a new book. That I did not have, but I've got everything else. Wild Hunter says they're currently collecting Indiana Jones and Buck Rogers in the 25th century, complete with cardboard settings and stand-up figures. Nostalgia bait indeed. TSR's Indiana Jones was awful, though. Really was. Wasn't it West End Games that did an Indiana Jones? It was, what they call it, Master Book or something like that. But they were using, I did not have it, but I seem to recall that it used the same mechanics as Star Wars, as the West End game Star Wars. Kevin R. Smith says, maybe you should follow through with running those 5e games so you can get some use out of those books. I never said I was going to run some 5e. I don't know what Kevin R. Smith is talking about. I did say I was going to run 5e. I said I had bounced it around, but I mean, it was never any plan. Didn't get past the bouncing around in my head part. Kevin R. Smith says Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Yes, I believe that's it. So there's the only 2 I don't have. I know I can easily pick up the Storm, what is it? Storm King's Thunder or whatever. Easily enough. Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, no, because it's out of print, and it's not, I'm not paying $200 just to have a complete collection. I don't care about that. So, Wild Hunter says, I've tried to like it, but 5e sucks. Try creating a character from a book, TV series, or movie. It's impossible. And Darius Terminus says, I've come to realization that 5e is no longer D&D. Like Wizards of the Coast has lost both control and the right to control it. So Kevin R. Smith says they heard Buck Rogers was awful too. Somebody made the joke that they were going to release Buck Rogers games until the fans liked it because of Lorraine Williams' connection to the property. Yes, because her family owned the copyright on Buck Rogers. So yes, that's why there was that whole TSR fiasco. I know Lorraine Williams is really disliked quite a bit. In my opinion, I think this will be my final thought for the evening, and I'll wrap up. I think as far as the whole TSR, Gary Gygax, Bloom Brothers events, I think there was a lot going on all sides that was not too keen. And, you know, people ask me all the time, so whose side are you on? Dave Arneson's or Gary Gygax's? And I'm like, neither. Because they were both kind of dickheads. So, unfortunately, but yeah, that's what happens. Money ruins a lot of people. Thank goodness that's not something I have to worry about. So, anyway, talking about 5e D&D, someone had asked if, and I mentioned this last night, if there was something that had taken place which had led me to finally say, hey, I'm done covering WotC and 5e D&D. And I said, no, it's just, you know, things have just been piling up. And the reality is that Wizards of the Coast finds it far cheaper and easier to just take a bunch of mediocre freelanced material, throw it all together, try to get it to mesh together, release it, and then have their cronies share videos telling you how wonderful it is. So I had said, you know, Wizards of the Coast doesn't want reviews. They don't want reviews of their products. They want sycophants and shills. That's what they want. And I said, I'm not going to be part of that. I'm not playing that game. So I don't have any beef with 5e D&D. It's fine. Mechanically, it's all right. I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think it's all that good either. I think there is just far, far too much fly by the seat of your pants in it than it should be for a game that has been around for that long and to have as many volumes out there for this late, well, it won't be the latest edition anymore. And yes, I know it's not a new edition, Jeff. It's a revision. It's a new edition in my book. Anyway, it's kind of silly that they haven't cleaned it up and kind of polished it up and filed off the rough edges of that system after all these years now. It's very, very weird. W-Forge asks if I'm going to make an exception for one D&D. No, I will not. See, that's another thing that bums me out because yes, it'll be the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons. I would have really enjoyed kind of getting into that. Of course, you know, you would have gotten the same sort of reviews as I always share. I would tell you what I honestly think. But I think I would have really gotten a kick out of kind of covering the 50th anniversary. And now that's not going to be the case. So it's not going to be the case. I don't know, maybe, you know, at some point Wizards of the Coast will come to their senses and realize, hey, you know what? You know, maybe some of these folks out there who were honest with their audiences, because I honestly think, now granted, I'm an optimist, so this probably will not happen, but I honestly think that we will eventually get to a tipping point where people will say, you know, enough of this bullshit about, oh, this is a review, and it's not a review in any way, shape, or form. that people will finally get sick and tired of the rampant clickbait and view baiting that goes on, and they'll finally wake up to what's real content and what is simply there to make money off of your eyeballs being on it for a few seconds. See, one of the things that I have pointed out in the past with other outlets that are out there, and I'm not going to knock any particular outlets, but there are outlets out there who like to crow about, how many views their videos get. But what they don't show to publishers out there is how quickly people tune out from their videos. That maybe their video is 8 minutes or 10 minutes long. And by 35, 40 seconds into the video, 80% of viewers are already gone. See, that's not something a publisher is aware of. So, like I said, maybe at some point in time, people are going to smarten up. Probably not. Like I said, I'm an optimist. Probably won't happen. People will probably just continue to get stupider and stupider and not be able to do simple math or read a complex sentence and understand it. But I can hope. Flaming Aaron says, Wizards of the Coast has herself to blame. Yeah. Wild Hunter says there are so many good role-playing games out there. There is hope for all GMs and players, not just hope. We're still actively playing. Flaming Heron says, unfortunately, people will keep buying the crap because they don't know any better. Right. If all you've ever had is gruel for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're probably thinking, you know what? Gruel's not so bad. Well, this is pretty good gruel. All right, last comment. W4 says, I'm tired of D&D as well, but think I'll give the one D&D rule set a purchase as just a way to say goodbye to D&D once and for all. To be honest, I'll probably buy it. I probably will purchase it just so I have it, and I will give it a peek just for my own curiosity, but I just won't share any videos of it. All righty. That is it for this time out. Last night was a long show. This is an even longer show. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed hanging out and chat. So this is our new format for the Gaming Gang Dispatch, tabletop gaming news, and then some discussion about what's going on in the hobby. So hopefully you're kind of digging it. I know there are people out there who are missing the first looks. Those are now separate. You got plenty of them to take a peek at, especially with Chaosium Week starting next week. And keep in mind, it's not only Chaosium stuff you'll be seeing next week. So not doing the first look videos on the live show is actually providing you with more videos. You may not realize this. Anyway, as I mentioned, next week, Chaosium Week, I have 9 Chaosium Inc. books that you're going to get to take a first look at. Very cool. Very cool. All right, that is it for this time out. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you took part in chat while watching live, a bigger thank you. Because not only were you keeping me company, you were also keeping each other company. But of course, I know there are a lot of people watching who don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. And of course, if you have not checked out some of my recent videos, by all means, please do. But if you like this video, by all means, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ring that bell, because not only will it notify you of when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central, it'll also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my recent review of Shadow Dark and my upcoming review of the Deadlands Companion. I just said those are on the horizon. No, I've done this review. It's out. So it is not on the horizon, Jeff. This is on the horizon, though. And other goodies also. All right, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. I certainly hope you'll join me tomorrow night. And as always, I certainly hope all of you out there get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.